Yes, good morning. I'd like to bring the April 5th, 2023 Planning Advisory Commission meeting to order. Official start of this meeting is 9 a.m. If you could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you could please silence or turn off your cell phones, thank you. I remind those in the audience and those watching on TV that this is the first hearing of any rezoning, text change, or special exception request brought before us today. We will first hear a reading of the staff report for the case by planning staff and ask the applicant to provide a brief overview of the request. We will then give the opportunity for anyone in the audience to speak for or against that request or to inquire about said request. The commissioners will have any needed discussion on the case. Once a motion is made and seconded by the commission, a vote will take place and a recommendation will be rendered. The case will go back to the planning department for their independent recommendation. If a favorable recommendation is given, then the case is forwarded to the city council with 2 independent recommendations. If the planning department makes a recommendation for denial, the applicant will have 10 days from the receipt of the letter stating the denial to notify the clerk of council that they are requesting to be placed on the city council's agenda. The City Council of Columbus will hold a public meeting called the first reading. Said council shall consider the case, review Planning Advisory Commission and Planning Department recommendations, and hear discussion on the matter. Council will make a final decision at a second public meeting called the second reading. Our first agenda today is to approve the minutes of our previous meeting. Does anyone have any comments or corrections to the minutes? All right. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes? First, all right, all in favor, raise your right hand. All righty. That brings us to our first case of the day. Case REZN 03-23-0473, a request to rezone 61.10 acres of land located at 9423, 9443, 9463 Macon Road. The current zoning is RE1, Residential Estate 1/HMI, Heavy Manufacturing Industrial. Proposed zoning is GC, General Commercial, or Single Family Residential 3. The proposed use is a commercial and residential subdivision. Ray M. Wright Incorporated is the applicant. The property is located in Council District 6, Allen. Could we please hear from planning staff?
Yes, sir. The general land use is inconsistent for planning area B. The current land use designation is vacant, undeveloped. The future is heavy manufacturing, industrial. It is compatible with the existing land uses. The property does not lie within the floodway and floodplain area. The developer will need an approved drainage plan prior to issuance of a site development permit if a permit is required. Property is served by all city services. Average annual daily trips will increase to 2,424, up from 1,112 trips if used for commercial and residential use. The level of service will remain at a level B. The site shall meet the codes and regulations of CCG for commercial usage. There'll be no school impact. The buffer requirements, the site shall include a Category C buffer along all property lines bordered by the SFR3, RE1, and HMI zoning districts. The 3 options on a Category C are 20 feet with a certain amount of canopy trees, understory trees, shrubs, ornamental grasses per 100 linear feet, 10 feet with a certain amount of shrubs, ornamental grasses per 100 linear feet, and a wood fence or masonry wall, 30 feet undisturbed natural buffer. There's no Fort Benning recommendation, no DRI recommendation. The surrounding zoning to the north is RE1, to the south is RE1, to the east is LMI, to the west is HMI. 20 property owners within 300 feet of the subject's property were notified of the rezoning request. The planning department received 4 calls and or emails regarding the rezoning. There was nobody in approval or opposition. And as far as additional information, applicant originally sought PMUD, planned mixed use development, but due to tax considerations decided to submit the GC and SFR zoning classifications. The applicant can speak to that when he comes to the podium. A public meeting was held on March 21st, 2023 by the applicant and Councilor Allen. 7 local residents attended the meeting and there was no major opposition at that time. And the last thing, US Highway 80 Overlay District, this is ordinance 07-43.
All right, any questions for staff?
The overlay district ordinance has a requirement for certain numbers of tree units for commercial uses. Are there any requirements for the amount of tree cover for residential?
There's not, no, sir.
Thank you.
So any other questions from commissioners concerning the staff report? All right, would the applicant please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and give us a brief overview of your request?
Good morning. My name is Austin Gibson. I'm a lawyer at Page Scranum. Our office address is 1111 Bay Avenue, Columbus, Georgia. I'm here today on behalf of Ray M. Wright, Inc. They are a local builder in town. They do residential and some commercial developments. They've done several subdivisions that I will show you as we get into this. And the engineer on our project has been Moon Meeks and Associates. So as John mentioned in his planning report, we're looking to zone 61 acres, and currently it's split into 3 different tax parcels. Going left to right, the first is currently zone HMI, the middle one is RE1, and then the one on the right is also heavy manufacturing industrial. And you can see it there as well. And as they mentioned, there's generally industrial uses and residential uses. The light blue across Calumet Drive is currently in a PMUD, and so what they've developed so far on the left-hand side is residential, but the right-hand side will eventually be developed into a commercial use, is my understanding. And so this is our site plan. It's not that large, but generally you've got 6 commercial parcels on the left-hand side off Calumet Drive, and then you go into 115 potential residential parcels, and those are SFR3. So as I mentioned earlier, the developer, Ray M. Wright, Inc., has been involved in several major developments in Columbus. Currently, they're working on Midland Commons out in the Midland area, and then they've also done all or portions of certain subdivisions in town, including portions of Garrett Creek and Garrett Pines, which are located near that area and in that area. And I also included some visuals showing, examples of some of their prior developments that would be generally similar to what we would see in this instance. The property's designed with the full intention of providing significant buffering across all areas. Currently, on the west side, you've got a 100-foot buffer that's already in place on the heavy manufacturing tract next to this, and then there's also a 100-foot buffer in place here. So you'd have over 200 feet of buffer in that area, and then we'd also comply with all other buffer requirements throughout the remainder of the development. Property's already serviced by all utilities. We've met with any residents that wanted to come out and talk with us at Salmon Road a few weeks ago. I believe there were 6 or 7 folks who came out who lived in that general area. And the notice, my understanding that the notice that Councilor Allen sent out on that was further than 300 feet that the planning department sends out. I think he extended maybe 2 miles, I think. So residents within a pretty wide area were given notice of the meeting, and we had 7 people show up, and generally they weren't opposed or against, they just wanted some additional information. The property is currently, the property will be within the Highway 80 Overlay District. And so I pulled just a couple of things out of that for your consideration. The first is that in the Highway 80 Overlay District, the encouraged use, especially in focus areas, which are defined as intersections between roads. So in this instance, Calumet and Macon Road, the overlay district encourages mixed-use developments of this nature in those areas. And then also the overlay district has certain architectural and landscaping and other buffering requirements that we would obviously be complied with. As far as economic impact, this project would have a significant economic impact in that it would create a lot of construction jobs in the build out of the commercial spaces and the residential spaces. And then there would also be, obviously some full-time positions after construction in some of those commercial buildings. It also increased ad valorem taxes in that, the property would obviously be developed and the commercial would be taxed at a commercial rate and the residential at a residential rate. And the last thing is, as John mentioned, the PMUD versus what the format that we eventually went for. We originally thought we would try for PMUD, and that's what the planning department recommended to us because you already have the Midland Downs PMUD across Calumet Drive from us. And so, I mean, I'm sure you're familiar, but with PMUD, you zone it and you have a certain percentage of commercial and a certain percentage of residential that you can do within your development. Currently, the way that the tax assessor's office taxes those parcels, though, until the property is developed, the entire acreage is taxed at a commercial rate. So even if our development was going to be, let's say, 10 acres of commercial and 51 acres of residential, the entire property would be taxed at a commercial rate, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars of difference until the property is built out, which with a potentially 100-unit residential subdivision could be multiple years. So that's why we eventually ended up going with the GC and the SFR. Same development, but with the tax implications and the way it's going to be taxed by the tax assessor, the PMUD just wasn't a feasible option. What questions do you guys have for me?
Yes, any questions for the applicant? All right. You got one, Mr.? Okay. All right, I appreciate it. Would a commissioner like to make a motion? Yeah, oh yeah, is anybody in the audience for this said a request? Is anybody against this request? All right, would a commissioner like to make a motion? Go ahead, Mr. King.
All right. Case number RECN 03-230473. Make a motion that we approve this case based on the fact it's compatible with existing land uses and there's no opposition.
All right, we got a second. All right, all those in favor, raise your right hand. All righty, thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
All right, that brings us to our second case of the day, REZN 03-23-0472, a request for a text amendment to amend the text of the Unified Development Ordinance, the UDO, in regards to amending Table 3.1.1 in Chapter 13 pertaining to private dog parks. Can we please hear from staff?
Yes, sir, and like you said, this is to amend the, amend Table 3.1.1 by permitting the following use in the following district, and that would be to allow private dog parks in general commercial. This is an update to the original ordinance that we submitted, I guess that's probably been about 2 years ago, for the Fetch Dog Park. Originally, we had general commercial as an allowable zone in that, but then pulled back to CRD UPT just to see how that it would develop out. The applicant has submitted to be allowed to do that in general commercial.
Is there any questions from commissioners concerning the staff report? Yes, Mr. Dudley.
Just wondering if there have been any issues with the Fetch Park. I mean, I guess noise wouldn't be a problem since there's no residential there.
Yeah, we haven't had any complaints or noise issues from Fetch.
All right, thank you.
For the public, can you kind of give us a definition of what a dog park is so people can understand it?
Essentially, it's a privately owned, commercial-based dog park that you would bring your dog to. A lot of times there is a membership fee that's involved. They provide toys and activities for your dogs to do. A lot of times there's also a store or a shop that's associated with Fetch. In their case, they have a place that you can eat and or get drinks there as well. So that's typically what we view a private dog park as.
So this would give you a blanket okay to go into any general commercial with one of these?
It would, yes, sir.
Okay. So no longer it would be brought as a special exception, in other words?
It technically now is not. It's just permitted in Uptown and CRD, just out of use. But we're adding it to GC so that people can develop it in a general commercial area. There was no, you couldn't even get a special exception prior to this for general commercial or neighborhood commercial.
Can you think of any situations where it might not be appropriate or where it might be better to have special exception in general commercial?
The only thing that I could think of, related to general commercial is possibly lot size. May need to have a minimum lot size requirement on it, because general commercial, we have some lots that are 4,000 square feet. And they could possibly back up right to a neighborhood, so that could potentially cause a problem, I think.
Well, that was my concern was, if you allowed it in any general commercial, then
Right.
if you have a neighboring neighborhood and they decide to have a dog park with the
Yep.
noise, et cetera. So, okay.
But I do think that this use is gonna be, of course, less of a use if you have a private dog park versus a convenience store with gas sales. So I think that there probably should be a minimum acreage requirement on that. But the buffering should, the current buffering that we have in the UDO should handle the distance requirements as far as noise.
How many of these do we anticipate? I mean, if it's just going to be a matter of 2 or 3 in the city, then it seems like it's not that great a hardship to make it SEU and just give a special exception for each case if there's a chance that it might not be appropriate.
Right. Right now, we just have the one. We do have, there's the city-owned one in Oxbow Meadows. That's in South Columbus. And then this applicant has a general idea of where they're looking to put one, but they're not 100% sold on that. We see maybe 3 to 5 of these possibly, but I don't think we're going to see an influx of 150 of these coming into town.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
John, are these, since they're back to a residential area, are they fenced in?
They would be, yes,
They would be
ma'am.
fenced in?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Would the commissioner like to make a motion to approve this text amendment? Oh, yeah. Is anybody for or against this said request? Text amendment change? 4? Okay. Is anybody against this text amendment change? All right. Why they're for? Yeah, well, would you like to come up and tell us why you're for this? Please, just state your name and address for the record.
Right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ritesh Mali, and this is my business partner, Krishna Shah.
Hey, good morning. So yeah, we've come into this community and we absolutely love the community. We live in North Columbus, and that's an area that we would like for this growth to be seen in, honestly. So
I think the benefits of dog parks are there for everyone to see. I think it encourages a safe space for dogs and communities alike to come and socialize. So it builds, fosters the sense of community, and that's what we want to, bring to North Columbus, make all of that more accessible and not have households drive 20, 30 minutes every time. And that's really what drives our vision.
All right, any questions for the applicant?
I would
Yes,
just
Ms.
like to know what the hours would be for the operation.
It would be in line with what Fetch does, I would like to think. We don't have an exact handle on that yet, but as this organically grows, I think we can set that in stone.
All right, any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, would the commissioner like to make a motion? Yes, Mr. King?
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we deny this until we have more information as far as square footage on the lots. I feel like, this is my opinion, that it needs to be a special exception use in any general commercial. So I'd like to make a motion, we deny it at this time based on the information we've been given.
And I just have a question for you. Is there a reason that you wouldn't make a motion to allow it as a special exception now?
No, I mean, I would allow it as a special exception, but
Okay.
with at least, like he said, 4,000, what'd you say, 4,000?
So general commercial, the minimum lot size is 4,000 square feet.
Right,
I mean, you could set a minimum acreage size that you feel comfortable with now that's within a special exception.
Well, that's, all right, I'll make a motion that we approve it, but I feel like it needs to come in the form of a special exception for each individual case
Okay.
with the minimum lot size for general commercial.
Okay.
Does that make better sense? Okay?
Second.
So that's my motion, all
Second.
right.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. All righty, thank you. All right. Is there any new or old business we need to discuss before we adjourn? All right. Have we got a motion to adjourn?
We have one case.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We have one case for the next meeting.
Oh, okay, great. That's fantastic. Somebody like a motion to adjourn? All right, second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. We're adjourned. Thank you very much.